Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka, an anime podcast where three idiots talk about an anime they've recently watched. I'm one of them, and we discuss it like we're in a book club. We turn the discussion over to our much smarter audience so they can carry on the conversation, tell us where we're wrong, tell us where we're right, and take this up to the next level. That's what the podcast is all about, and we're very happy that you were able to join us. We are going to be talking about the first 12 episodes about To Your Eternity, a recently featured anime that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm not even going to describe it yet. But to talk about it, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the Kurt Russell to my thing, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been pretty busy this week, but I did manage to get almost all the way done with XCOM. So I haven't lost very many, but I sorely miss the ones that I have lost. But two of the chosen are dead, so I'm excited because it's just the hunter left, and yeah, so that's pretty much it.
All right, we also have the other host, who is the Linda Hamilton to my T2000, Jason. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Everyone got the references tonight. They weren't that hard. They were dated,
Sort of.
but
Shapeshifters.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Fine. Hi, Jason. How you doing?
So one of my favorite survival games, The Long Dark, got an update, a new chapter. So they've been releasing story chapters, and Fury Then Silence just came out, and it's a completely different spin. Like the rest of it's been like, oh, you fight nature and the bears in the snow. This is, you got captured by prisoners in a maximum security prison in the mountains where everything is snow, and yeah, you have to try and find your way out and help this person that's like, because they're like trying to break out a really dangerous criminal out of solitary, but because all the power in the entire world, in the area, has been eliminated, they can't open the doors to solitary confinement, so they're trying to find a way in. And yeah, it was really fun, and it was a really cool story.
Is that the game where you start by getting in an airplane and crashing?
No, that's the forest.
No, because it's super cold and you got to get in a cave and you're dying because it's so cold and you got to light fires and.
Well, I mean, that is The Long Dark, yeah, but
okay.
I don't know about the airplane. I mean, well, yeah, the first chapter you do crash. That's right. Yeah, you're in it with your ex-wife.
Yeah.
Super awkward, by the way.
Yeah.
That conversation.
That's right. Okay. I was just trying to place the which game it was. I thought that was it. Yeah.
All right, and my name is Troy, and I'm the other guy on the show. I'm the Otto to... I never watched Deep Space Nine. I know it's supposed to be the best one, but I couldn't get over the fact they're just a stationary space station.
Oh, sorry, I was watching Deep Sleep 9. Oh.
Man, people say it's the best one, that like the Trekkies are all about it, and I'm like, next generation for me. I'm a next generation guy.
Yeah. I'd even take Voyager over Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
how dare you?
I like Voyager. The Borg showed up a lot.
Was so much better than what people say it was.
It was pretty good.
Oh, okay, I see it. All right. I have. So everyone on who's watching anything on Netflix is watching Squid Game, and I haven't seen it yet, and I plan to.
I don't even know what it's about.
It's a death game show made in Korea, and it's supposed to be like really good.
Huh.
Yeah.
Think like Hunger Games type stuff, but also has having to do with classism and money and stuff. But okay, I haven't seen.
I was hoping it was like Japanese game show, like they're running down the hill and they have to go through the
yeah,
paper
but
walls,
I think like heads explode and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was hoping like some of the walls were false so they get through, and then others were false because there's blades behind them.
That was just preface, okay, man. You're commenting on the preface of what I'm actually trying to say.
Yeah, Squid Game is like an anime. It's like a live action.
Don't let me stop you.
Actually, the only reason I haven't watched it is because it seems really familiar to some animes that are out there, and I'm like, doesn't sound as original as to everyone else it is, but it's taking away a lot of attention from the other new Netflix show that I watched that I really want to try to sell today. Midnight Mass. This was made by Michael. Oh, I forgot his name. It's the same guy who made House on Haunted Hill, or
Keaton.
the Haunting of Hill House and the Haunting of Bly Manor. No.
Oh.
Anyway, he's a really good horror director, and I should have remembered his name. I've known his name for the past 2 weeks since I watched his show, and I can't remember right now. Classic Troy. This is a show that is about a sleepy, dying old fisherman town. Something straight out of a Stephen King novel, right? Very small community. You know, a lot of the archetypes are very similar. And a new priest comes to town. It's a very Catholic community, and a new priest begins preaching there, and supernatural things begin occurring. The show is a bit of a slow burn. There's no hidden ghosts like in his other shows. There's not a lot of boos and scares. It's a very slow burn horror, and there's a lot of emotional monologues. It is very much a drama. It talks a lot about death, about life, about faith. I actually thought it was going to be more anti-religion. I thought, we're going to see kind of the religious versus the anti-religious. That's not it at all. It's a very thorough examination of religion. If anything, it's more criticism of organized religion, but it's more about faith versus fanaticism and the line in between those, but with a horror supernatural element in there.
Does it have a Lovecraftian like?
That's what I was
vibe
thinking.
To it?
You hear fishermen, and immediately the old
I'm
ones.
not going to say anything on the podcast on the show. It is a really good thing about it's about halfway through that it's a hook twist, and then there's more going on. But again, it's a much more deeper meaning to everything. The supernatural element is just the hook to talk about life, death, all that stuff. And one of the most evil characters I've ever seen. And for someone like me who came from an organized religion, and there's those people who just use it for power that it gives them. There is that character in this, and she is absolutely horrible. The actress is wonderful because you hate her so much. A great, great show for those who are interested in that kind of content. And that's what I wanted to sell. Now we need to talk about our anime, which is also a lot about life, death, and a lot of the same themes. We watched To Your Eternity, and to give us our non-spoiler reviews, we'll start with Jeremy, who picked it.
So, yeah, this is really something. I really enjoyed this part of the season, and based on what I've seen so far, I'm guessing that the rest of it is going to be just as great. I can't see them taking a nosedive because there wasn't anything for me to be suspicious about. Like, I didn't see anything where they missed a beat or missed a step. It was just good, great, better. The characters are so endearing, and you get to know them so well, and you care about them so much, and the anime knows how to use that. It knows how to play with that and to play with you. And just the way that the central character, the protagonist, is built up and has to deal with his situations, and you're watching him grow, and the roles that he has to take, and the other characters and their interplays is often very nuanced. It's just very well done. Very well done anime.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
I mirror a lot of what Jeremy said. And one of the things that really struck me about this anime was it's the writer's bravery and being able to address a lot of the stuff that I bring to the table that I complain about a lot of anime on this podcast. They solved a lot of issues with really great storytelling. And the character arcs, the characters themselves, just the overall overarching themes as well, all just super well written. If you haven't seen this anime yet, I would really suggest not spoiling it. There's no big twists just yet, but it's so worth a watch.
The word for my review, the word that Jeremy hit upon that I keep thinking about is the characters. Oh, the characters are so great. So great that while it's not bad in its world building in any way, I don't care about the world. I don't even really care about the powers and stuff that we're seeing. I just want to see these characters and I want them to grow and I want to watch them interact with each other, and I'm absolutely enjoying every second of dialogue that they have with each other, everything they go through and feel, and that matters to me. And then they're like, oh yeah, but there's this mystery. I'm like, shush, 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 shush. There's characters on screen. Go away, mystery. I don't have time for you. It is some of the best character writing I've seen. There's gonna be sadness in this one. You as soon as you hear the concept, you're like, oh, I'm going to be sad. There were tears shed, and it's an emotionally heavy anime, but I'm all for it. It's been great.
Yes, you got injured by saving her life. Just tell her.
Yeah, I have to add, well, we're still in the spoiler-free section, that like I don't cry from anime. I don't cry from movies at all on shows. Like, it is incredibly rare. This anime got me like 3 times. I went back and I watched a couple clips just to remind myself, because, I watched it all Monday. I watched a couple clips before this podcast and it got me again. And I'm like, what the heck? I watched a 2-minute clip.
Jeremy.
Huh?
You're just getting old.
Is that what it is?
Jeremy so is not the I cry guy. That
I
when
just
he
don't.
said crying emojis, I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is so well done.
All right. Before we go on to the spoiler section, we are going to talk about the OP and the ending. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
OP was good. And I feel it's, again, the animators and the writers are doing a great job giving decent symbolism without spoiling the anime. The first time you watch it, you really kind of don't understand what's going on, or at least I didn't. And as the anime went through, you're like, oh, that's cool. And the ending was nice.
Yeah, the OP, the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, I know that voice. I know that voice. I love that lady's voice. It's the singer from the Kingdom Hearts.
Hikaru Utada.
Yeah, she's great. But at the same time, I was like, man, this music is so sad. Why is this music so sad? It's trying to play my emotions. I'm ready for you. And but then it didn't work. Yeah, yeah, I was not ready. But as the anime progressed, and I didn't watch the OP every time, but I came back and I watched it a couple of times throughout. It fits perfectly, and there's a ton of little foreshadowing secrets in there, like you were saying, Jason. It doesn't blow everything, but like there's still like there's a shot of a character and she's holding a bow, and then there's like an image that flashes and it's only there for a split second and then it disappears, but it caught my eye and I was like, what is that? So I went back and I checked the frame, and sure enough, I knew what was coming. I didn't know how it would happen, but I was like, oh, this is cool. And it was just that split second. It wasn't like what you get from a lot of OPs where they give you like multiple seconds of a shot. And they do this with quite a few different characters in the OP, where I don't even know who some of them are because they come from the latter half of the season. But it's really cool.
I love Hikaru Utada. I've said before, I'm a huge fan of the Kingdom Hearts games. Simple and Clean is one of my favorite songs of all time. And the only bad thing is I'm getting Kingdom Hearts feeling as she's singing, and it's all just because I connect her voice to that series. And there's also shots of like people on the beach waving, being friends, and I'm like, this is really Kingdom Heartsy. But what her music does so well is set a tone. You watch this OP and it puts you in the mood for this show. It gets you, hey, this is sensitive and it matters. I don't even understand what she's saying. She says the words pink blood and then she says a bunch in Japanese and I don't know what it means, but it's emotionally resonating with me, and now I'm emotionally vulnerable, and now the show is going to do something with that. The ED I remember liking, but it's not super memorable to me. It has more shots of more characters and stuff. I do have some more thoughts about the, like you guys were saying, the flashes that go through the OP, but I'm gonna save them for in the spoiler section, just because they do spoil stuff. So let's go to the spoiler section. So from here on out, we'll be talking about plot, characters, everything that happened within the series, only up to episode 12. If you have not seen it, you have been warned. It is your choice whether you go on or go watch the series at this point. All right. So, To Your Eternity starts with a man called the Beholder, who we will talk about later. We should. But he's also our narrator. And he talks about the orb he sends to Earth. It's just a little white tennis ball sized thing that comes down, and it lands on the ground, and it takes the form of what it touches, which is a rock. And then some moss grows on the rock, so it takes the form of moss. And then snow comes, and a wolf is dying and lands on it, and so it becomes a wolf and gains consciousness for the first time. This orb is our main character. We will follow it as it goes through a journey, even though it's a shapeshifter. I very much think of the creature The Thing, but not evil in any way whatsoever. And that it can, shapeshift, take forms of things. There's rules that aren't super clear at this point about what it can and cannot change into, but clearly, like, death is a big part of it. So we have this wolf, and so it's time to talk about the orb. He will be called Fushi later. He'll also be called Joan at one point, and right now he's just the orb. So what did you guys think of our main character?
This is one of the a lot of feelings. I really like this character. It's one of those slow burn character arcs where we're in the first like 6 episodes we're watching a child grow up. And that's kind of neat. And taking the form of an animal first and coming, as we'll find out real quickly, he becomes the companion of another person. That relationship, it's really interesting. I had a hard time not latching on to this first side character more than the main character, because the main character was a dog. Even though they both got basically equal amounts of screen time. I'm really a fan of this character. I cannot wait to see what happens in the next half of the season.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. What they're able to do with a character that essentially plays the role of a rock for an untold period of time, and yet they're still able to make this character interesting and bring him from that point of complete being an inanimate object to suddenly gaining sentience and then sapience eventually is absolutely fascinating. They do such a good job with it. You were 100% right. Like when he joined the kid, the first side character, it was all about the kid for me. I was like, man, the orb is kind of cool, but he's just kind of an angry looking dog. Like you've seen Angry Cat, right? That's what he looks like. It's like the dog version of Angry Cat following this kid around. And I don't know whether he's picking up on anything the kid is saying. And when I picked this anime, I only knew that there was an orb that could change shape. I didn't know anything about the rest of the story. And so I just thought, okay, so this is just going to be, this kid's the real protagonist and the orb is going to just kind of follow along and we'll see what happens to the kid. No, that's not where they go. And yet what they do with this orb character, he is easily able to carry the show's story. He doesn't carry it. The other characters play a fantastic role in it, but he is so deep and complex. Watching him go from the point of not being able to communicate, having no language whatsoever, to even wanting to learn language is really cool. So yeah, I really like this character.
Yeah, he's kind of the computer come to life archetype, the blank slate, as some would say.
What are you trying to say? Feel personally attacked.
No inside jokes from the pre-show.
Yeah.
Our listeners love when we do that too, I'm sure. Jason said blank plate, guys. It was hilarious.
Jason's
all right.
Blank plate.
I see how it is.
what you guys said is true though. Watching him grow, watching him develop is a fantastic journey to be on. I wonder if we're seeing, because he's not just learning to be a human. We're seeing him go through like stages of, from a child to a teen. And like we're watching him actually become, not only just become a person, but grow from a infant to something more, even though he's always in the shape of a, I guess like 14, 15-year-old boy. Because he's,
Well, it's interesting the way you say that, because like thinking back on it, he goes from inanimate to animal, and then from animal to near caveman, and then from Neanderthal to child, and then from child to teenager, and yeah, it's a fantastic interpretation of that process.
I was wondering, and I'm not sure yet. I need to see more, and I don't even know if. I think there's a season 2 coming. I don't think we're getting the full everything. I don't think this ends at the end of this first season. But it seems like maybe we're going from God to your parents to your sibling, and like going through the phases of the people in your life. Because this show is about life through the lens of death, through the lens of an immortal, and learning about life while people are dying, but not in we went 100 years down the road and you just die of old age, but like that's what I'm seeing. We only really get two and a half story arcs here. That's just something that's building in my head. It just seemed a little on noise that one character is like, I'm his mother, and then another character is like, I'm his brother, and I'm like, is this a thing of watching him go through the stages of family and then leaving the nest and growing up into an adult and all that? Maybe not, but it's very fascinating to see what they are doing with it. There are definitely themes that are being explored here that are fun to watch through this character, and that's making a great entertaining show.
Not everything's Fast and Furious, Troy.
Look, if he turns into a car with Nos, though, how cool is that?
And then someone keeps saying family.
All right, so this first episode is our first little story arc, and as a wolf, he is found by a boy who we never learned the name of. He is just the boy.
And he mistakes the dog for his current dog.
Yes, the wolf that died was his actual dog. He sees the orb, who, let's just call him Fushi, because he will become Fushi eventually. At this point, his name is, the dog's name was Joan, but he will be Fushi. So he takes the dog in, and he's like, hey, here's your food. And the orb's like, I doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't understand eating or anything. And we learned this boy is in this abandoned village in the middle of, I don't know if it's the Arctic or basically icy wastelands. And his entire village left 5 years ago, but they couldn't take the elderly. And he had been sick or injured.
Yeah, the dog bit him.
Right, that's right. The dog had bit him. And so he wasn't allowed to go, and they left him behind to take care of the elderly. All the elderly have since died. He is all alone in this village, except for this dog is his one companion. And we see them spend some time together, but like he has alarms set up for fishing, but if it gets tripped, he thinks someone has come home. Obviously his desire is he wants a person with him. He doesn't want to be alone anymore, which is kind of also becomes the theme and the calling of our main character too. So it's very, it resonates. But anyway, the one thing I got to mention is the wall of the faces that he draws of all the members in the village. And then every time we cut in the mid break of every anime episode, we see the main character's wall, which is completely as new faces appear on it. And oh my gosh, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, you got me in the heart again.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes.
Because he says, I don't want to forget their faces, and I want, even if someone ever sees this, I want them to know that people had lived here. So they set out on this journey to follow his village, and they set out and they find a stone marker with an arrow pointing the way they're going. They're like, we're going the right way. And then we get a montage of them traveling together, and they keep finding markers, and eventually they find a dead tree. And he's like, oh, because we're trying to get to a mountain where there's trees growing, so this is a good sign. And then the ice breaks and he falls in the water. And when he climbs back out, his leg is gashed. So they
He's
have
got
to
like
stop.
spines sticking out of it, like a piece of wood broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Stuck
just
in
like,
there.
oh, that's sepsis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
So he bandages it up, but he refuses to give up. He keeps going. All the while he talks to his dog the entire time as if they are having a conversation. That's the thing. This character is super optimistic about everything, even though he's clearly like on the verge of always losing hope. Like he's just living in a dreadful existence, and so he's always like, "This is going great. Everything is awesome.
Yes.
Oh, my leg is swelling. Don't you worry about that, though. I'm doing just fine."
He's the living dog in a fire burning down building meme. That's basically him.
This is fine.
Yes, this is fine.
And the worst part was watching like his face starts getting rosy, but then his fingertips are all getting rosy, and I'm like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They eventually come to another stone marker, but there's an X drawn through the arrow, and when he looks over to the side, there's like a bunch of broken down wagon wheels and a bunch of graves. And he's
God,
like,
and it's the way he refers to the graves. He's like, he's dusting them off, and he's like, someone's been through here. This is great news.
Here, this is great news. Yeah, and then he starts complaining that the dog doesn't talk to him, and then he apologizes like, "Oh, I'm just complaining, but we have to go back because of the injury." So they do, and they make it back home, but he's so sick that he can barely take care of himself, and eventually he crawls to his chair and dies. Now, one thing that's super interesting, so the wolf he now turns into the boy. This entire time, the wolf and the boy have been tied together by a rope around the wolf's neck and a rope around his wrist. When the wolf turns into the boy, he still has the rope around his neck from when he was the wolf, but now he also has a rope that is part of him that he formed because that's what the boy had. Well, and the most interesting thing about the shape-shifting is that whenever he takes the form of anything, he keeps the injury that killed it. He can heal through anything, but he always forms the wound that killed them. And so he always has this bloody wound on his leg. He always has this rope on his wrist, and for most of this first couple episodes, he's got a rope around his neck too. So he's dragging these two ropes, and something about that visually kept striking me like that. He's still the dog because he's got the rope around the neck, but he's also the boy because he's got the rope around the wrist. I loved that they kept that detail. How smart that was.
I thought they kept the rope around the neck all the way. Did that disappear at some point?
He might. I stopped. I thought I did stop seeing it, but it could have slipped past me.
Yeah, one thing that confused me a little bit, and I don't think it's a bad mark at all. I think that it's just I need to understand the rules of this shapeshifter. Is that the clothing is part of him, and yet it can be taken off, and we get to see some instances where it's taken off, and it like, because it's part of him, it like sticks to him a little bit, a little tenderly. But it got me to thinking about like, why can't he just take an arm off the same way? Like if somebody grabs the arm and pulls on it, why doesn't it disconnect?
I mean, he probably could.
I think on a technical level, he probably could if he realized, if he thought about it. Because at later point, he starts growing items out of his body and he just detaches them and uses them, even can eat them. And so there doesn't seem to be any like matter conservation is not an issue here.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be an end to it.
Yeah, he's basically breaks all the rules as most shapeshifters do, of physics and everything. But he is like, I'm waiting to see where they go with it, like where they set the limitations. Because right now it just seems like the entire limitation is on what he understands about himself.
Yes,
that's the only limitation I'm seeing.
That is true. I do think if he tried to detach his arm, it would hurt though, because he seems like if what he becomes has nerve endings and would feel what he does, he ends up feeling it. But again,
All right.
I think your statement is the most accurate. It's what he understands how it works that's actually making it work.
All right, Troy. I have a very technical question to ask you.
Well, I'm the wrong
When
person.
he shapeshifts, there's this animation of what looks like white bandages almost.
Yeah.
Or th-
True.
how do you feel about just like white bandages being whatever you're using for turning into shapes?
I'm fine with it. I can't remember ever having any issue with it
Always
at all.
loved it. It's great.
Okay, no, full honesty, I'm not crazy about that animation as a way of shapeshifting. Not because of the white bandages. I just felt like it was a little hand wavy. I thought we could do something a little more visually interesting than that. I don't see it as the same as the one anime where with the toilet paper powers.
Toilet paper powers. Those are the best.
But I get what you're saying. So maybe there is some hypocrisy there. Wouldn't be my first.
More poking at you. Having fun.
Good times. Good times. All right. So the orb decides to travel on just like the boy wanted to, but also the narrator tells us he wants stimulation. He needs to be stimulated, so he goes out seeking people. Also, we need to talk about the death scene. So the boy dies, and we see him meet with his entire village. This becomes a recurring thing where like we actually stay with the characters as they enter some type of afterlife, and there does seem to be a permanent I'm stuck as a ghost following the orb around as well.
Yeah, we see that because there's like a 4-year gap time period there, and one of the characters that we haven't seen as a ghost for 4 years appears.
Yeah, and looks at one of the new ghosts, and it's like,
Yep.
wait, are they trapped in limbo?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so the boy he goes out of his house and he sees his village is all there and waiting for him. They all came back for him, and he gets to be with everyone. And then it of course shows you that nope, that's not what happened. Everything is awful. Sorry for giving you any hope and joy. Nope. All right. So this thing, the orb travels on. It dies from hunger. And then
times.
reforms. 6 times,
Yes.
yeah, we're told. It has died 6 times. And every time it dies and reheals, it gets faster at doing so. It keeps soiling itself because no one ever told it how to go to the bathroom.
Yep.
I had to explain to my daughter what that meant. that was fun. And then we meet March, who is a little girl with a gap tooth who's playing family with her stuffed animals in what time era would you guys call this?
It's not
Feudal?
definitely feudal.
Yeah. Because this is very much a tribe, right? Then
Yeah. It feels
Right, and also like the high society, there doesn't seem to be
Mhm.
much technology.
Mhm.
So, I mean, probably a later feudal time period because everything's still manual tools.
Yeah. It feels like the early feudal in these first episodes, but then when you get introduced to the rest of the people, then you're like, yeah, this feels more like late feudal.
The biggest technology I think I saw was train tracks. No actual locomotive, but there were train tracks. Which
Well, and also they have, formed bronze and brass and steel.
Yeah.
So they're able to mold those things. So they have that kind of tools.
yeah, but little March, she lives with her tribe in the woods, which is very, very primitive. And she is kind of our character for this story arc. So what did you guys think of March? Jeremy, I know she's your favorite character, so why don't you take it?
March was adorable. Just the way that, like the other characters, she stayed very positive, but at the same time, she was willing to acknowledge the negativity of reality at times when there was no way out. And in her situation, like it wasn't because everybody had left her. It was physically. It was because everybody had abandoned her in person. Like they're all still there, but nobody's helping her. So very similar themes. And yet her personality and her attitude are they're just fantastic. They're very uplifting in the context of what you're dealing with there. She's picked as a very important character specifically by this old lady because of how cute she is. And I just loved it. And the way she's drawn, she's got almost like her head is way too big for her body. Like it's super wide. Looks like, what do they call it? Gumbos or something like that? Goombas? She reminds me of a Goomba.
Okay.
And yet she's like not scared when she encounters the main character in the worst possible circumstances. And she takes on this role of, being mommy. And it is so cute to watch this little tiny kid who's probably like 4 or something, and yet she is the parent figure to this, fresh, no longer a rock or a dog guy. And so their interactions are just fantastic.
What do you think, Jason?
She had a semi-tropey child anime character to her, but in a really unique way, where she's dealing with very adult things. And not at first. Like at first we're just kind of following this kid around and like learning about her culture. And unfortunately her culture involves sacrifice. But anyways, I actually really I ended up really liking her, and I think more I liked how the story was being told from her point of view. I thought that was really cool.
The dichotomy of a character whose goal and dream is just to grow up and take care of other things, being chosen to die for others that aren't willing to. Man, that hits hard. and not only does she have this childlike innocence and very typical kid stuff going on, but there's also like a streak of wisdom in her, and we see it early. Like her dad's like, "Oh, if you talk too much, you then you won't grow up," and she's like, "Nah, Dad, that ain't how it works." Nice try. And also when she's chosen to sacrifice and looks at like the head of the group that's decided this, and she's like, "Who are you to decide this? Who made up this stupid rule? I didn't agree to this." Which is not something like a child would usually say. So there's this wise beyond her years, but also I think my dolls are alive and my dolls are my children, and just adorable. And the outcast stranger of the village, hunter girl, is the daddy of the family because she's the one who makes her the dolls, and so she's those two are close. March she steals almost every scene she's in, and I don't know if I've ever said that about an anime character. Usually that's like an actor who's stealing scenes, but March is such a fresh take on such a young character. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Again, like what I said before, spoilers, the characters, I'm enraptured with them. All right. So yeah, we see her playing with her friend Pirona. I don't have Pirona here to talk about. I think we will be talking about Pirona next time. I do. She is an important character here, but I don't think we've quite gone through her arc yet. But it is her backstory when we get to it is super interesting. One day, when a village bell rings, her friend Pirona grabs her and takes her off into the forest to play. And she's like, "Wait, what was that bell?" She's like, "Don't worry about it. We're going to the forest to play." But they run into some warriors from what we find out is like a big nation and not just another tribe, but they think it's another tribe. Show up and are like, "Hey, you guys need to go back to the village. The ritual is starting." And then there's this elderly woman who is checking all the little girls in the village and checking their mouth. And March is the cutest, and I don't disagree. Even when she's getting examined, she's got like this big smile, like, "Oh, something cool is going on."
Yeah.
Oh, it just melts your heart. But then you also know, like, the signs are pretty clear at this point. This is bad.
Yeah.
This is real bad.
Well, it's funny because when we first meet March, she's got this ink on her face, and you're unsure what it is because like the characters around her don't end up having it. But then this scene happens, and there's like 2 other little girls that also have ink on their face, and I was like, "Oh, those are markings for the ritual."
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they're just markings to show they're not adults yet, but yeah, they're the only ones eligible for it. Yeah.
Yes.
It's also crazy when we find out the full truth behind this
Oh,
ritual.
right.
That like this elder woman, like, oh, the wise woman here, and we find out she's just a random old woman this group brought because
From prison.
yeah, from
From
prison, because
prison.
hey, we need the ceremony to look good, so the villagers will be stupid enough to kill one of their own kids and keep them in line. Holy moly, talk about some heavy thematic work. All right. Her parents, like in public, her parents are like, we're so proud of you. You did so good. And then in private, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We couldn't save you and protect you. And even like her dad's not allowed to hug her. We meet Hiyase, who is basically this warrior woman that has come down to make sure this tribe goes through with the ritual, and all these guards who wear they look the Moscow Royal Guard hats, but
Yeah.
all the way over their heads.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, are these Muppets?
Exactly.
And so Hiyase is watching her every day, not making sure she doesn't get away. And even March says that, like, oh, why are you always watching me? It's to protect you. It's really so I don't get away, right? Little A, little B.
Potato, potato.
The ceremony keeps going, and eventually they cart her away. And then as she's being carried up the mountain to be tied to an altar to be sacrificed, a arrow comes flying in poorly, and we had seen that Pirona had the bows are too heavy for her, and she's not quite good with a bow and arrow yet, and
So-
she's learning.
Actually, it's a little. There's a little detail that is important here. She sees the bird, and she realizes, I want to be free. March does. And so she bolts from the carriage. She's like, I'm out of here. I can't go through with this. And that's when the arrow comes in. And the reason that's important is because when they capture Pirona, they find a bag of bones on her. She wasn't going to stop the carriage. She was going to rescue March at the altar and then replace her with the bones.
It was bolt and then arrow. I thought it was arrow and then she ran.
No, she ran and then they went to go chase her, and that's when the arrow came in to stop them from chasing her.
Oh.
It was almost simultaneous, but yeah, Jason's right. It was a bit faster.
That makes sense because you're right. She does have that bag of bones. So yeah, she runs off. She falls down this hill and she lands in this little pond.
And she's like apologizing to her sisters while she's doing it. She's like, I can't go through with it. I'm so sorry.
Well,
Yep.
and because Hiyase had said, if you're not the one sacrificed, who do you think it's going to be? And then like shows a shot of the baby, her baby sister, who's literally a baby. Yeah. So she lands in this pond, and there's a dead corpse of the boy from the first episode.
Completely ripped to shreds, by the way.
The bear got
A
it.
giant bear had killed him. Yeah, we had actually seen a scene of him being killed by the giant bear. And the guards come running after her, and this corpse stands up and starts healing and regenerating, and they freak out about the monster and run away. And this works for March, so she starts following this wandering guy.
I love that she looks in the water and there's this eye connected by this like long string of tissue. And it gets sucked away into his skull.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a great scene.
It's a great scene. Yep.
So they walk along, and then March realizes she's hungry, and they find some what look like pears.
Yeah, it looks like Bartlett pears.
So she starts picking them up, and Fushi comes up and smacks them out of her hand. And then he starts eating them, and he eats them like a dog still. He doesn't realize he can pick them up and eat them. So he's eating like a dog. And she's like, okay. And so she picks up another one, and he smacks that out of her hand, and he starts eating it. Until the point where she climbs up a tree and starts picking them from the tree, but he's freaking out like, oh, I want those too. So she's throwing them to him, very much treating him like a dog. He's acting very doggish.
Yeah. This whole sequence was awesome because she's trying to scold him because, he's an adult, even though he's a monster. She's expecting him to act a certain way. And she's like, no, you're supposed to say thank you. What are you doing? These are mine. He's just the way that they even drew the subtleties of it. Like there's a point where she comes back down out of the tree after he calms down, he gets enough to eat. And she's trying to squeeze his face to make him say arigato. And the way that they drew it, after she does it, like, I think twice, he literally like jerks his chin out of her hand, and you got the sense of motion, and you could get the sense of him being like fed up with it. Like, I don't care about this thing you're trying to make me do, just like a dog would. Right? And even just in that subtle bit of animation, they caught that so well.
After eating, they fall asleep in the forest. Hiase is told about the monster that was in the pond. And then the next morning, that night, she has a dream about the other little girls and her sister being eaten. So she starts heading back, but Fushi follows her. And she's like, "Hey, you quit following me. I'm not your mommy," which is, important for. But then she starts trying to teach him, and she realizes that because he's immortal, she literally names him. I'm guessing the Japanese word for immortal. She calls him Fu, but his name is now Fushi as of this point. Then we see Pirona trying to escape her captors. And that giant bear comes along right when she does so, attacks the guards, and she ends up having to jump off a cliff to get away from it and lands in the same pond and starts tracking down March and Fushi. But
This bear is terrifyingly drawn, by the way.
I got so many Mononoke vibes.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing.
Yep.
It's just like bleeding from the eyes and mouth. It's got spines all over it, which you come to find out are spears that have been broken off. Like, and this thing's enormous. It's like the size of a 3-story house.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Hiase finds March, recaptures her, takes her up the mountain, and leaves Fushi behind. Gives her a black cube, a little gelatin black cube to eat, which knocks her out. They tie her to the altar, and then Pirona goes after her. At the altar, the bear, whose name is Oniguma.
Yeah, sounds right.
Close. He's what they're supposed to be sacrificing to, and he shows up before they can get away. So they close him. They're closing him in while they're running up onto the side of the wall. And Pirona runs in. And she's trying to free March, who's asleep, and she gets hit away. Meanwhile,
you mentioned earlier that that this whole ritual was a control thing. You come to find out these guards, like, did not believe this bear existed.
Right.
Like, they thought it was just basically a prank to keep them in line. Like, this thing was make believe, and then all of a sudden it shows up. They're like, "It's real."
Which means they think they're just tying up kids and leaving them to die, because they even have this thing like, we will get their remains in a year. So they do go back and get the bones, and they definitely leave the kids to die.
Starve and die of exposure. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Fushi shows up, and the bear eats him, rips his head clean off. But he keeps going. He wants to help. He turns it back into the wolf form, which is our first time learning he can do this, and he battles the bear. And yeah, the bear is clearly stronger and bigger and doing a lot of damage. Fushi can't die, and he heals through everything.
And he's getting excited. You keep seeing like a wave of almost like electricity go down his fur as he's fighting with the bear.
I thought that was him feeling the pain of the other creature. I couldn't figure it out.
I thought it was stimuli. Like, whenever he experiences some kind of new stimuli that is very intense and something he hasn't experienced before, because at one point it happened after he bit the bear and then leaped away. It went down, I believe. So he wasn't actually causing any pain at that point. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, you're right, because he did say something to the effect of, "I can feel this creature's pain."
Yeah, he did say that.
And yeah,
Or
and
the narrator did.
we clearly know at some point he fully bonds with the bear and can feel his pain, which he does with certain characters that he eventually can shapeshift into. He can feel their pain. But this was a little bit different because like before it's like a thumping, and then this time we see the, like you said, the bristles of the fur. So that could be what you're saying instead. I honestly at this scene didn't know. I was like, what is that? And then
Yeah.
later had kind of just made a random assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Another question I wanted to ask you, and it was back at the fruit eating scene.
Mhm.
His eyes turned from yellow back to the human pink, but then back to the his actual yellow. Was there a reason for that?
At first when it happened, I thought, oh, okay, so he's satisfied. The animal's not so much in control. It's the human. But then you're right. It's really weird because sometimes he's got the orange eye or the greenish yellow eyes, and other
Right.
times he's got the purple. So I almost wonder if it's just who he wants to be more of in that moment. The eyes actually, the window to the soul, is like in a way to see which character he's playing more of, even though he may be wearing a shell of a different one.
Do you think the ghost have the ability to affect him? And maybe that's what that was. Is actually the boy.
They definitely do. They
Having-
definitely do.
Yeah, because we see March later being like, "Help, stop her," and he
Mhm.
does. So I was wondering if maybe at that moment was the boy is the one who calmed him down, not just being satiated with food.
I like that idea. He would have had to get past a threshold where the boy could calm him down. But I am curious why we never see the boy's ghost, even though we do see the other characters'
You're
ghosts.
right. You haven't seen his ghost, and he also didn't get the, "Oh, here's my happy ending. Oh, wait, here's what's really happening" moment either. Where like the other ghosts, they get this happy ending, and then they turn around, they're like, "Wait, where's Fushi? Oh, I'm a ghost, and here's the actual events happening right now."
It's almost like, didn't he fade away as a part of his ghostliness?
I don't remember. I didn't know to be looking for details at that moment.
Yeah.
So
I think I remember all of them like disappearing, almost like little bits floating away from them, and him as well. So I think he may have gone with them and not stuck around in limbo. Maybe.
all right, so Bear's taken down. March wakes
Which I
up.
don't like. I get it; he's immortal, but like,
He bit the nose.
biting
How
its
did that take it
nose?
down?
like, how did he kill it? Let's not stick on
Well,
this point. I
yeah.
was confused about
Doesn't
that.
kill. Actually, I thought he killed it, but he actually doesn't kill it. He
No.
just takes it down for now. It's still technically alive at this point
Oh,
Yeah. I
okay.
thought,
because it
yeah, it
dies
seemed like-
later.
yeah, it just passed out from the pain, basically, because noses are very sensitive on dogs, and cats. So I think I'm still trying to figure out how it died later, though. Maybe it was just blood loss,
Yeah.
because it's always bleeding. So maybe having that nose wound was just one too many.
Yeah, and it never really moves again, so it could just be a long dying process. Hiase basically tells them, "All right, here's what we're gonna do. Technically, you're all dead, so you're gonna all come with me to live in my city." But what she's really interested in is this immortal creature, clearly. And then we get the great scene of Fushi in dog form coming up to March, and in the English dub, "Thank you for the food."
Yeah. Yep. Same thing in the sub. Yep. So
Which,
good.
I mean, like Jason said, you knew that this was coming. I think you said this in pre-show. You knew
Mhm.
this was coming, but not this moment. And it's
Not
so
this
cute
way.
to see the wolf do it.
Yeah.
And like you said, because he's in wolf form, it doesn't exactly have like vocal cords or anything, so it's like really awkward. But yeah, it's kind of comes out of left field.
I loved every time the wolf or the
Yeah.
bear spoke.
Yeah.
He does the bear later, and just because like he doesn't have a human voice, so it's just like, "Run, guy, or I'm back."
Yes. When in the dub, what did they do when the boy started speaking the first time? Was his voice crackly? Did he have a hard time talking?
Yes, and it's very robotic too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want boat.
Yeah, okay, good, because that's what it did in the sub, and I wasn't sure if they carried that over.
Stuff like that. And I'm not doing as well as the voice actor. I thought the English dub was fine, but yeah, I imagine it was pretty good in the Japanese version as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the fun things about Squid Game, because it's made in Korean, is watching non-anime viewers argue about dub versus sub.
Ah!
Welcome to the battle, pals.
Yep.
All right. Next episode, we get Pirona's backstory, which, like I had mentioned, she was one of the girls who could have been chosen for the sacrifice, and her sister, and in a different village, and her sister had hid her away, and she didn't know what was going on. But when she came out back to the village, they're like, "Oh, you hid, you loser! Your sister died for you because you weren't willing to be part of this," and so they actually exiled her, and that's why she lives in this other village as kind of just this loner. They get to the city of Yanama. This is clearly much more advanced than the tribal villages that we had seen before. And in the prison wagon, they meet the old woman, and we had already mentioned she's actually a prisoner, and she introduces herself, and we're going to talk about this character later. So we'll come back to her, but she's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm actually a prisoner," and like she's like, Marsh is like, "Why did you choose me?" Because you were the cutest. I don't know. I don't care. um, Fushi pees everywhere. He's still in dog form, and so they have to go bathe, and then he turns back into human form. They go to the city. They visit the market. They're in shackles, so they're basically, "Hey, yeah, let's look around." March finds a courier who's willing to write letters, and she's like, "Great, write a letter to my mom and dad." And he's like, "Okay, where are they?" She's like, "In the village. Send it to the village. Mom and dad in the village." He's like, "Okay, well, here, write what you want to say." And she's like, "Well, I don't know how to write." And
I
they
love
don't
how
know how to.
when she finally, because he starts to write it, and then they're like, "Oh, they can't read
Yeah, they
either." She's like, "Well, I can write," and so she just slaps her handprint on the paper.
The handprint
This
on it.
says,
They'll know this means March is doing awesome.
yeah,
And
that
then,
comes back painfully later.
oh my gosh, so much. And then, what's her name? Pirona takes the letter. Is like, "I'll give this to your parents." So she gets the letter. Then they all go eat. Fushi learns to eat with his hands because he eats something on a stick and it stabs him. And so he figures out, well, if I pick it up, I can eat it off the stick. But all their food is drugged, and then they're put in a prison cell. And I don't know why they took this detour. Maybe she scared the immortal can't be captured, but this just seemed mean. Like, just take him straight to prison.
Yeah, it's almost either mean or gracious. It's hard to know
No.
which, because
I think it's neither. I think it was, I need a way to control this being that can take down an enormous bear. It's obviously friends with these others. So if I show kindness to these others, the shapeshifter will do what I want it to until I can get it in a position where I can take advantage. And so all of that kindness was leading up to this moment where she could drug them all.
yeah, that makes sense.
So he wakes up in prison, and then they keep sending in prisoners to kill him, to see if anyone can kill him. He gets stabbed with a spear, and then he forms a spear out of his own body. And so it seems like the rule is anything that hurts him, he can make. And so if your death hurts him emotionally, he can become you. And if you physically hurt him, he can form you. But he can't do fire. That's a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
As far
Yeah,
as
I like that. Well, at least not yet. He'll do it later.
But like you had said before, I could definitely see that changing or growing. Especially that's as much as he understands at this point. So I'm more just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
They even have the old women trying to kill him, and I thought that was hilarious.
That was
considering
amazing.
Where their relationship goes later.
I'm sorry, but they told me I could go out of here if I stabbed you.
I need to get out and get good food and a lover.
Yeah, she wants to get laid. I love
Yeah.
that the old lady is committed to getting laid.
Yep.
Fushi actually he tries to escape, but they kill him. And when they bring him back to March's cell, she takes the arrow and she passes it up to Pirona's cell above them. And then Pirona starts planning an escape for them. Fushi smells something, and so he digs a hole in their cell, and in the cell, basically the room next to theirs, their cell is like around it, is the room with the giant bear who's dying. And Hiase sees them in there and is like, perfect, you guys take care of the bear, and I'm out. Because nobody else wants to do it. So March actually like works on brushing him and trying to clean him and get the spines out of him. But he ends up dying anyway, and Fushi tells him thank you very much. And then Pirona does her escape plan. She ends up falling out of the tower and into this storage place, and then the guards getting ready to do really bad stuff to her. But she gets the upper hand and takes his outfit and then goes and gets March. And so their escape plan is they take the old woman, and basically she doesn't want to just escape. She wants to get home and prove that Origuma is dead and they don't need to worry about this giant bear anymore and no more children sacrifices, because really that's all she cares about. No more children sacrifices. That's insane. And so she wants to cut the bear's like eyeballs out. And March is like, no, he's my friend. You're not going to do that to him. And they have this big argument, and she agrees, okay, I won't do it. And they get into this giant wagon. They start escaping, and the series is fantastic. The series of events, because we see it all from March's point of view. They're driving a wagon out away from this castle. They're being chased, but we don't see anyone chasing. We maybe hear like a whistle of an arrow going by, but we don't know what's going on. She's talking to Fushi. She's talking to, and everyone else is like, well, not Fushi. He's just kind of sitting there wondering what the heck's going on.
There's a fire in the corner. You see it. You're like,
you just
what's
in
that?
the corner. You see like smoke start bubbling through the wood. You're like, hey, what's going on? And they're actively pursued, and they've been set on fire. And Pirona's doing her best to take care of it. She's fighting off guys, and while she's out there fighting off some of the guards, Hayase is shooting an arrow at her, and March is like, I need to help. And so she jumps in front of the arrow and she takes it to the side, and we get this really sad scene. Now, Fushi freaks out, turns into a bear, and starts rampaging Godzilla style through the city.
Mm-hmm.
After hitting Hiase from her horse, setting her flying.
And this is where she finally matches that snapshot we got of her at the OP.
The double scars.
Mm-hmm.
Which is gruesome. And also why I think we're not done with the character, because that's such a cool character
aesthetic.
Visual. Yeah. You got to bring that back.
She's also ends up like a little Wild Eyes as well.
Yes.
She seems a little crazed.
Yeah, because she was like this cool, calm, collected killer, and then after the scars, she's
yeah. I actually really liked her as a character up until the point where there was no way they were getting out, and she was like starting to do experiments on whether or not they could kill him and everything. I thought she was a pretty interesting character up till then, and she was pretty cool. But yeah, this actually elevated her to a completely different direction, but really cool too. Like, I'm really interested to see where they go with her.
So we get this really sad death scene of March, of her saying, and she tells Pirona, "You have to become a mommy for me now," and she did. And now I want to talk about the OP. In the OP, there are shots of characters doing things that we learn later are impossible. There is a shot of teenage March dancing with her baby dolls.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she looks so happy and so gleeful, and she dies here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my god! So now every time in the OP that shot goes by, I'm like, oh,
yes,
pain.
Yes.
And it happens with the next character too. There's a shot that after a couple episodes into the next story arc, I was like, oh, this can't happen. And this is another one of they're just showing me what the character wishes, and it's such a I like the other one even better. It's so visually well done storytelling. I instantly know the relationship between the two characters in the shot. I know what he's trying to do. He's in a very protective stance. They're holding each other romantically. It's that perfect, like, I'm going to protect the woman I love. And it's like, oh, no.
Oh, you're not.
Oh. So the OP is like the perfect reopening of a knife wound every time because of, hey, wouldn't it be great if March grew up and this is how happy and gleeful she would be?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Pirona.
yeah, because she ends up like that in her like spirit form in the teenage.
There is a split second where it like shows you for a few seconds, but yeah, that's it.
And then she's like, "Where's Fushi?" Oh no.
Yep. Gotta come
Pirona,
back.
Pirona takes her body, jumps off the wagon, walks into the city to Fushi, and basically tells Fushi, "You can stop rampaging now. She's already gone." Picks up a broken blade and walks up to Hiase, and it's like, oh, she's gonna carve Hiase up, and
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't. She gets ready to stab herself, and that's when we see March's death thing of her dreams coming true. But then where's Fushi turns around, sees what's going on, and is like, no, don't kill yourself, Fushi, stop her. And Fushi does,
Mm-hmm.
and Fushi turns back into the giant bear, throws her on his back, and runs out of the village.
The moment he stops her, the look on his face
Oh,
was
God.
heartbreaking.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The animators in this anime, good lord. He didn't have to say a word. And everything that he wanted to say to her was said on his face. And you're just like, oh. Yeah, and then he turns into the bear and takes off. But it's just like, I was hoping she was going to finish off that wench, but they leave her to bleed.
Yep.
So they get home to the village. Well, the village sees the giant bear running up and is like, "Oh, we're being attacked!" But she comes off. He turns back into the boy, and she's just carrying March, and she's bundled up so tight it almost doesn't make size. Doesn't work. But she's like super bundled up, and holding her to her chest. And she goes up to the parents, and she's like, "Hey, I have to deliver the letter from March to you." And hands it to the dad, and he's like, well, it's their handprint. He's like, that means March is doing awesome. And they're like, but where is March? And then they realize like what she's holding, and this is the scene that got me. This is where I started to cry when the dad's like, why did I let this happen? Why did I not save my own daughter? And I was like, oh god. Yeah, this was, of all, when March died, I was like, okay, I'm okay. I can handle this. This part got me. And then basically they tell Fushi has to leave because Hiase is going to come back for him. They're going to keep coming after him because he'd be a super weapon, right? An immortal being that they can experiment on. So they tell him to run away, and he does, but they do see Hiase chasing him in the distance. So Pirona takes the even bigger bow than before and fires it, trying to kill Hiase. Misses, but hits her hand when she's about to shoot a bow and arrow, saving Fushi so he can get away. And then we see Hiase turn to the camera and have the two big scars, and just that crazy look, like
Crazy eyes.
I'm insane now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if their village is raised to the ground at this point.
That's a good question.
And then Fushi becomes March.
Which,
Mhm.
oh,
So this episode ended, and my daughter looked at me and she goes, I'm okay. No, I'm not. And she burst into tears. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And we knew, again, I had known a little bit about the first episode, and just knowing the concept of that, you're like, oh, this is going to be, and I thought it'd be a lot more death. I thought it'd be like every 2-3 episodes. It's actually was less than I thought, but the emotional impact we saw coming, but
That's heavy.
it hit her hard.
I'm okay. No, I'm not. Oh,
All right, so now we get to talk about that old woman, because she was still on the wagon as they went tumbling into the road until it stopped, and she didn't know how to make the donkeys go. She doesn't know what she's doing, so now she's stuck in the middle of the forest all by herself.
But the donkeys ran away.
So this is Pioran. She plays a lot of different roles. She's like a horrible person, but also a wonderful person at the same time. What are your guys' thoughts on her?
I can't stand her, yet I think she's a great aunt. Like, she wouldn't be a great grandmother, but she'd be a pretty awesome aunt, like great aunt. Yeah, she's funny, and I think she definitely plays to her own interests. So just about everything she does needs to benefit her in some way. If she's gonna, I guess she's a pure capitalist. No. Yeah. So I thought she was a great addition to the story, and the fact that she lived through this half of the season tells me we might get to see her later down on the road.
I wonder if he'll get a Pioran shape. But I gotta say, I never expected her to stick around. Like, when we were first introduced to her and she's the old lady that's pretending to be a wise woman and picking the child to be ritually sacrificed, I thought that's it. One-off character. She's done. She's gone. Then they introduce her again and she's stabbing the main character because she wants to get laid. And then she survives and wants to find something to eat because she's super hungry. And then she's got the ability to teach him language and everything, which makes sense because she's an old lady. So who knows what her past is? She's got knowledge, right? And like you say, she's actually got a complex personality where, you know, she's kind of a jerk a lot of the time.
Insanely lazy.
Insanely lazy. And she's the perfect counterpoint to another character that we get introduced to fairly quickly. But not even a counterpoint as in the opposite, but like maybe a harmony point. I don't know. What would you call it? But
Yeah, they make a good team.
Yes, exactly. And I really found myself enjoying her being present in the scenes. Like, she definitely contributed something. It was a mixture of funny and yet sometimes she anchored situations because you knew that there was somebody there with enough experience and wisdom to be able to, you know, have some kind of deeper inner thoughts about what was going on. And she didn't always say it. You could just tell by the way they drew her that she was thinking it. And that was pretty cool. So I thought she was a good addition.
A great detail that I found really funny is that, you know, she's walking down through the woods after Fushi and she's using her stick, her walking stick that she's got. But when she first like saw him and was like, "Hey, you need to help me out," she literally ran, grabbed her stuff, and ran after him. It's like, okay, hold on.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, she's a liar. She's a bit of a con. She will complain and starve to death rather than get up and cook food herself. That she knows how to do. But also, I think genuinely cares about Fushi, and so a multi-layered character that I did, like you said, Jeremy. You see her the first time, and you're like, "Oh, there's the tropal elder woman picking the sacrifice. You need to have that in your story. It makes sense." And then to find out that she's got this layer, that she's not what she appears on the surface, and then she's not even that underneath the surface, was fantastic. And the reason I listed her as a character we need to talk about at the end of the last episode that we watched of 1 through 12, it seems like she exits the story, but she's in the preview for the next episode. And I'm like, okay, you're apparently never leaving. You are one of the most important characters ever. Yeah. We have to talk about her.
Yep.
Did we ever find out why she was in jail? Or why she was in shackles?
I don't even know why she was in that country.
Yeah, that's a good question. She said something at the beginning when they first talked to her about prison, but I don't remember what it was. But it was very vague.
All right, so we kind of described some of the scenario. Basically, as March, Fushi walks up to her. She's like, "Oh, you're that little girl, March. Hey, come help me, guys. That Fushi was a freak, wasn't he?" And then he turns into his boy form. And she's like, "Oh, it was you. Okay. Well, you can help me." And he just leaves. He doesn't care. she's so hungry, she starts following him. And she's like, well, let me eat your leg. You're immortal. It'll grow back. Which, it's funny, but it's also logical.
It is. That's
Yeah,
that
she
old lady
sees the
wisdom.
wound on his leg and like goes and bites him.
Yeah, tries to eat him. And so he turns into March. So the reason he likes to be March was super good at climbing trees. So as March, he's young and nimble and he can climb things. So he turns into March, climbs up the tree and starts throwing fruit down at her, exactly like March did to him, which she then eats very much like a dog, and she's so happy to eat. They keep traveling together and they eventually come across a sign map posted, and she starts drawing it. And I've never thought about that before, but that must be how it used to have to have been done, huh? Because you can't just Google it
Yep.
Or snap a picture of it.
or from my time, actually buy a road map and stuff. You'd have to find someone who made a map and then copy it yourself to know where to go. But Fushi is fascinated by just drawing. He's never seen anything like that before. And so he grabs the pencil from her and starts drawing on the paper. And she's like, oh, you want to learn drawing? And she starts teaching him letters and how to write names, his name, March's name, her name. And she's like, I will teach you if you take care of me. And we'll travel back to my homeland where my lover lives and we'll go stay with him. And that works. They travel. She teaches him language. We see him learning words like tree, river. And by the time they reach the boat, he can almost form basic sentences, very much like a child who's just learning to speak. And this is where he learns how to talk. And it's a great little montage and really cool. I loved watching him learn how to talk. There's something about it that was just so true, real. I mean, when you teach your kids how to talk, not only do you have to where do you start? Do you just do everything? But then they start picking up the in-betweens on their own. It's such people learning how to speak for the first time ever is just fascinating to me. And so watching it in anime done well was really cool.
What I really liked about this is I'm not sure if it's just the placement or how they did it, but none of how he spoke and their travels felt rushed. Even though it was a montage, I didn't feel like I missed out on context or, well, how does this explain this? I didn't get any of those feelings.
Yep, absolutely. They reach their destination, which we will come back to because we're actually going to go backwards in the story and start from another character's viewpoint. And this character is Gugu. Gugu is the kind of the main character of our next arc that starts here.
His best bud.
Yes. And he lives with his older brother in a tent. They're very poor, and they look at a mansion, and they dream about living in a mansion themselves. Your guys' thoughts on Gugu?
The fantastic character. And it was neat to watch a character arc over, what was it, 4 or 5 years that we get to see him. And just kind of, he's got a really strong work ethic. He's got a very particular moral set of values. He's looking, he could easily be a street urchin, but instead he decides that he's going to actually work and become a merchant. And also the way he takes the hard knocks of life that are harder than what other people get, and just and dealing with the emotions of that and the situation of it. There were a couple of times that I probably wouldn't have blamed him if he attempted suicide. He had it rough, and real strong character. Really liked his addition to the cast.
Yeah, gaga for Gugu. Had to do it. No, he was a fantastic character. It really got me to think about, why does the orb keep running into these horribly tragic people? How is it attracted to these horrible circumstances, one after the other after the other? Like with the boy, the tragic circumstance of being left alone, abandoned out there to die slowly, and then find that everybody he knew is dead when he tries to go and get to them, and then die of sepsis. Then with March, child sacrifice, like doomed, you're gonna die no matter what. He's attracted to that. He's not attracted to, but he is. He winds up with that. And then now he winds up with Gugu and all the horrible things that are gonna happen to Gugu. Like, that's 3 for 3, man. Either there's a lot of people that are going through similarly tragic stories in this anime, or he is somehow actually being drawn to characters that are suffering, and I'm not sure which it is.
I think the meta reason is, well, hey, that's what the writer needs to happen.
Well, yeah.
But I do think there is a lonely hearts, or those who are lost or alone, seeking out each other, seeking out someone to
Yeah.
especially to Gugu, because when Gugu meets Fushi, they have this huge instant connection, basically become brothers in their own way. And Gugu becomes super dependent of him, and I think it's because he sees another loner, another freak like him, and okay, we're gonna hang on to each other. Whereas March saw a baby, and we skipped over the part where she goes, "I'm gonna be your mama."
Yeah.
So that, again, it makes me, and I mentioned this in pre-show, it makes me wonder about the theme of
Family.
Oh yeah, we.
Too many Fast and Furious. No, I think you do have something there. Like when you said God, parents, sibling, I had never really thought of it that way. But yeah, the boy was in a position of really, he gave him food, taught him how to eat. Like
Right.
He was God to him. It makes sense. And the other two speak for themselves, especially when we learn about Gugu's situation. But yeah.
He also might have just an inkling to be attracted to that kind of stuff because of his whole sole purpose is to discover stimulation, like that's said over and over by his creator. So that just might be part of his personality or his makeup.
So you're saying he's a drama queen?
An immortal drama queen.
Yep.
So Gugu, we see him with his brother talking about the mansion. They go to work the next day, and he sells stuff in the market while his brother works in the fields. And when he comes back, his brother hanging with some other guys.
Shady individuals.
I don't honestly, they didn't do anything shady, but it's very visually shady, especially because they're like, who are those? Just some guys, don't worry about it. And when he goes to put his day's wages into their savings box, some money's missing. He's like, hey, I think we got robbed. Did you think your friends might have done it? Are you accusing my friends of being stealers? Okay, never mind, I guess. And his brother's like, don't worry about it, just don't worry about it. And so you see where that's going, and it's like, he meets a puppy, and then the next day he sees that puppy in the market, and then he sees a little girl who he thinks is really, really cute. He'd seen her before. She's missing that puppy, so he brings her the puppy, and she gives him a really expensive ring. And we see her. She's like, "You'll never have to sell vegetables again. Here's this ring." And her nanny is like, "That was really rude." And she's like, "Yeah, well, I hate green anyway." But he has such a crush on this girl that he treasures that ring, and so he holds on to it. And then when he goes home that night, all the money's gone, and his brother's gone.
His brother's not there,
and with a note that's like, "I gotta go my own way, and I took all the money, and you'll be fine." Wow. Couldn't make like a little bit? Jeez Louise.
But this is just the beginning for Gugu.
Yeah. This isn't even that bad. That probably was
nothing.
He starts working in the fields himself. Eventually, he sees on these train. It's not a train, but it's like a guy pumping on a train tracks, carrying logs, and a log falls off and almost hits him. And he's like, "Holy crud, that almost killed me!" And this guy runs off to get help, but the log starts rolling down a hill, and it's coming at the little girl as she's picking these purple flowers. And so he's like, "Oh my god, I gotta save her!" So he runs down in front of the log, and he pushes her at the last second, and him and the log go tumbling off this cliff. And then all we see is a shot of him, his body under the log, and his head's completely underneath it. And we hear people freaking out about the girl, she's hurt. We got to help her. And no one's saying, she was pushed, and no one's saying anything about the boy laying with a log on his head.
On his head. Yeah.
Uh,
Not a
and
word.
I don't know if they could see him or they just
No.
weren't looking at him.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think a little bit like we don't care because he's not
A street urchin.
Yep.
But also kind of easy to miss because he is over the cliff. Like no one even saw who he was. And then the brewer, we had mentioned the brewer. The brewer had been mentioned earlier in the episode. He was a weird guy who makes alcohol. He finds him that night. And then Gugu wakes up, and there's all these like surgical tools, which look more like meat cleavers around him. And his belly is all super extended, and he looks in the mirror, and his nose is gone, and his eyes are gigantic, and all we see is like a shadow with like giant monster eyes. And eventually he gets a cork for a nose
Yeah.
that he can pop in and out. Like, so he's a freak now. And the old brewer man had done surgery on him to save him and gives him a mask to wear. And if you want to know what the mask looked like, play Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Because he is the villain from Twilight Princess's head is the mask. Looks kind of like an iguana.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now he works at this brewer's house. He calls him the Booze Man. And Fushi and Piran arrive and join their world. And so Gugu takes Fushi on a tour, gets him some alcohol.
I'm back, Booze Man. I brought you a freak.
I brought you an immortal freak. And the Booze Man's like, I'm just a booze man. What am I supposed to do about that? And so, like I said, Google gets really protective of him because they're talking about like maybe we can sell him. Piran is like, maybe we can sell him and get money for him. And he's like, he is a person, and we're gonna keep him as part of our family. Gives him a bath, and it peels off his clothes, and I mean literally peels, and because when he transforms, everything is part of him, and it literally is like detaching from his skin.
Mm-hmm.
But they put him in some regular clothes. They put him to work, and then the little girl comes to the shop. And we learn the little girl's name is Reen, and she's just kind of looking around. And she talks about how one time she got injured, and she has this really horrible injury that she doesn't like people to see. And she's looking for it to heal, so they sell her some pickles, and Gugu, he's like Jeremy said, he's gaga for her.
Yes.
But she clearly kind of prefers Fushi at first. She thinks he's really cute. Depressed about that, Gugu starts working out, as you do when you're crushed like someone else.
Yep.
And the best, this is one of my favorite scenes. While he's working out, the old man like points at him and laughs. He's like, ha ha ha. And then Fushi walks up, looks at the old man, looks over, and Gugu goes, ha 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 ha, and learns how to laugh.
Imitating him.
Followed by the scene where Fushi goes over and gets onto the pull-up bar and starts to do a pull-up.
He said, no, you can't do
He
exercise.
starts kicking it. You're already good looking enough.
Reen comes back, and she asks if she can work and live at the shop, and she'll get her parents' approval. She promises. And then Gugu is experimenting with Fushi's powers. Like this is where you learn he cuts him with a knife, and he's able to form the knife. But he hits him with a fiery torch, and he's only able to make the already burnt torch, but not the fire. But clearly, Fushi's not enjoying being stabbed and cut and experimented on. And Gugu gets upset with him. Reen comes to stay with them, and Fushi turns into a dog form and like goes and sleeps outside. Like he's very upset about their fight. And Gugu learns that the Booze Man, when he was surgically repairing him, added a little something extra. He's storing.
It was a dream of his.
Yep, to store booze inside a human being, and that's why his belly's
aspiration.
all extended. It's super high
High proof.
yeah, alcohol. Very valuable. So Gugu runs away. He's like, okay, that's a violation. I'm out. Um, and then they have this argument like, hey, someone should go after him. They're like, Reen, you should go after him. And she's like, well, Fushi, do you want to come with me? No, I don't like Gugu. I cook now. And so Fushi starts trying to be the cook, and he's terrible. He's like literally like cutting a vegetable in half and then throwing it in boiling water. And is like, I cook.
Yeah, they're all
then
trying to cut this boiled daikon up and just eat pieces of a radish for dinner. Nobody can do it. It's so nasty.
The best line though is Reen is like, I'm sure with a little salt it'll be fine. So she puts
No.
a little. So the next time he cooks, he does the same thing and then takes this giant pile of salt. Salt.
Rams would be proud.
Meanwhile, Gugu, he returns to his old job with his old foreman, who he explains, he has to always explain his mask, and everyone makes fun of him for the mask, that he's a monster, the booze man's monster that was made. But he explains to the foreman, I got hurt. The foreman's like, hey, why don't you just come live with me and my family? Well, his sons are not okay with that. He's like, well, yeah, if I am going to live here, I have to see what I look like. He takes off his mask. They're like, that is haunting. think of like the Deadpool scene, but like without the jokes. Just mean.
Yeah. Well, and I love, one of the things I absolutely love about this is that they never show us what Gugu looks like. Ever.
And just all we see is like the edge of the eye sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. And I think that does so much more than if they showed us, because anime's kind of numbed us to the most extreme things, right? Like, you can see some horrific things in anime and be like, oh yeah, that was a good anime. That was a pretty gory character or a pretty crazy looking character. So if they do something like that with Gugu, I think it would just reduce the effect of him being a terrifying. It's like Lovecraftian what they did with him, where don't describe it.
I kept thinking we'd get to see it when Reen saw it, but yeah, they never let us see it. He leaves. He tells the foreman, that's okay, I don't need to live with you. But while going home that night, he gets attacked and some guys steal his mask just for fun. And so he takes it and he throws it away. He's like, fine, why am I hiding my face? It's not my problem that I look this way. It's their problem. But they do have a major problem with it. Everyone is really freaked out as he walks through the market, and as he's working, he's very distracting to the other workers who are making fun of him. They're mean. And the foreman's son comes to him and is like, you're making my dad look like an idiot. He's like, yeah, my dad is fine with you, but I'm not. Nobody else is. And my dad looks stupid for being okay with you, so quick showing up. And he does. And he runs out of money, and so he considers selling the ring, but then he talks himself out of it. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. But then he sees his brother, drunk, skinny, in the street, lowest of lows, passed out, and he puts the ring in his hand. He's like, you just take it, and I'm just resigning myself to my fate as a monster. And then that night, in his broken down tent, these guys try to kidnap him to sell him as a monster, a freak. And Fushi comes and saves him. Because Fushi has realized he had asked other people for help, and they kept going like, you need to ask Gugu for help. And he realized,
how did we skip the fight in the forest?
Oh, I did.
With the old woman.
Because I'm a Baka.
I just realized that was coming up, and I'm like, oh,
that's
no,
kind
this
of like
is
a main antagonist, huh?
Yeah, that's right. After their traveling montage, there was one other thing that happened, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, back then there was a monster. It looks like vines and plant stuff that comes out of the ground, and whenever it stabs him, whatever forms he's in, it steals that form, so he can't use it anymore, and it can. And we also get to meet the Beholder as he's fighting it. This shadow guy in a shadow cloak with real pale skin who can freeze time and talk to him and be like, hey. Oh, this is my one complaint about the anime, though, is the name of the bad guys. The Knockers.
Knockers, yeah. It's weird name.
And Knockers. I get, in Japan, that probably doesn't mean anything silly, but I'm like, why don't we just call them the Hooters while we're at it?
I know, exactly.
Like, I'm an immature, middle-aged man. I can't handle this.
really detracts from the tragedy and the
seriousness, right?
levity of it.
Instead of I'm the one who knocks, I'm the one with knockers. Anyways,
Fushi, watch out for your greatest enemy, the ding dongs. You know, we just. But he's basically wearing like the behold. What do you guys think is the Beholder? Is he God, an alien? This doesn't seem like Earth since we have giant bears.
I think he's an alien that is like, I don't even know if he's necessarily really the maker of the orb, because he talks about it as if he made the orb, but then he describes the orb as something that he just encountered or found in some sentences and then cast it down to the earth to see what would happen. And then there's other times where, like in regards to these knockers, I get the sense that he may have actually created them. He doesn't seem to say that, but I'm suspicious of it.
My daughter said the same thing. I didn't get that, but that's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I think he might have created them, and he even says, they were created to get in your way,
Right.
to force you to develop. And that's his whole thing, is he wants him to develop. So why wouldn't he be the person that created them? And then, my right hand is behind you helping you, but my left hand is putting obstacles in front of you. But beyond that, I'm not really sure. He certainly behaves as if he is powerful enough to do whatever he wants, but is choosing not to, or either that, or he's not as powerful as he's pretending to be, and so is trying to con. One or the other. Not sure.
He also says that their overall goal is to preserve this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what the orb is supposed to do, but I don't understand. And like I said, I honestly thought this was going to be much less of a fantasy setting than we ended up getting. I thought it was going to be about an orb that shapeshifts, takes on human form, and lives normal life through our history.
Mm-hmm.
But it does that. Then there's been giant bears, and
Yeah.
now there's these plant monsters. So it had more stakes than I thought it would.
Yeah, and the core that the plant monsters have is basically an orb, but it's
true.
like a fleshy orb.
Yeah, fleshy sponge orb.
Yeah, and there is something weird where he says, they can't take on the form of animals. Like they're failed experiments because they can't.
I thought it was interesting that he's becoming people and animals, and it was a tree. But the second time it shows up, or I guess the third time it shows up, it did look like it was fleshy.
Exactly. My thought too. It's got rocks, but the rocks are just connected to the tentacles. So there's flesh there. Yeah. Japan. Thank you.
Jason, are you looking stuff up or?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I can't remember the name, but
Knockers.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm kidding.
No, he reminds me the creator guy.
Mm-hmm.
He reminds me of like a mage, like a really like ascended, powerful mage that's just experimenting. Like he's created this magical construct. He wants to see what it does. I was trying to do a cool Elder Scroll reference, but I can't seem to find the name of the order of mages that.
Did
you know you can buy Skyrim again?
For the smart fridge.
There you go.
The Sigic order? Anything in the Sigics?
Yes, the Sigic order. He reminds me of a Sigic order priest.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking nerds.
Pop in, freeze time, give dialogue, tweak events.
Mister, I love freaking Kingdom Hearts, all of them.
Yeah. This is our Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, but ours doesn't have a Keyblade that just entered Smash Brothers. Anyways, back to
you need to get the mod that gives you the Keyblade, my friend.
All right, that was pretty good.
Fair enough.
That got me.
Fair enough.
All right, back to where we were. Thank you. I wonder how many people are listening and are like, holy crap, I can't believe they don't realize they skipped that.
I know.
My bad, guys. Jeremy
Right.
saved us all. All right.
We are a
I totally
professional
forgot.
podcaster.
That's right.
So at this point, Gugu's like, this is my brother. We are monster brothers.
Oh, you
And
didn't
so-
say how he beat it.
He turned
We
into
didn't describe the fight at all in the
Mhm.
forest the first time.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Eventually, he kills the heart as March.
Yeah.
That's
There you
the
go.
last form he has left.
Right, but when he squeezes and destroys the core, he gets all of his stuff back. And it's
Yes.
interesting because the way they animate it, it almost looks like Data.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
The little cubes that come out, the
Mhm.
little squares.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
his square because they're 2D.
And then later on, like the white tendrils with like what look like the black dots in it, almost like a staticky TV tendrils. That like it just reminds me of streams of Data. Is like what screamed out to me.
So, do you guys think this world is not real?
I don't know about I think the world might be, but like, I don't know. Maybe he's a digital construct of some kind.
Yeah, I saw it as like drawing wireless communication, basically.
Yeah.
But I hadn't considered the possibility that the world might actually be simulated.
Look, we should
Huh.
always think the world is simulated. Elon Musk said so. Oh, all right.
There is actually a simulation hypothesis as the answer to the Fermi paradox.
Stop it.
Stop it. All right. Yeah. Monster brothers scaring villagers, having a great time. But Gugu grows weak and because he hasn't eaten. And so Fushi learns he can make all the food that he has loved so much from his travels come out of his body. And I don't know if I would eat it. I guess if I'm dying.
I was thinking the same thing.
Especially like he can eat that too. So like he essentially is his own food manufacturing now. So
Yeah, but he doesn't even really need food. Yeah, he'll die, but then he just comes back. He doesn't actually need nutrients. The body he's pretending to have needs nutrients.
but then yeah, it's got to be that limitation of like couldn't he just manifest it inside the stomach lining? Never have to actually eat it.
He learned it. I bet he probably could.
Yeah.
Playing a dude dressed as a dude, pretending to be another dude.
But then Reen shows up and she's basically like, "Hey, I want you to come back because we've all missed you," which means I had to be the cook, and I was terrible. And please, because he's the only one who knows how to cook.
Made like purple sludge.
And he suddenly gets very conscious about his face. He hides. He doesn't want her to see him. Wants his mask back. So Fushi goes to go look for the mask, and she's trying to talk him into coming home. And she's like, "Oh, I'll show you my horrific scar." And then you don't have to worry about yours. And she's got this tiny little scar on her arm, like 2 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's nothing. And she gets all upset. They have this argument, and she basically realizes like I was pushed by what we assume is my father's enemy, and I was horribly scarred like this, and and so he. Realizing his her horrific sacrifice has only been viewed as a horrible evil all this time, he breaks down crying, but they end up making up.
Well, I love that he chews her out at first too, because he's like,
Yeah.
"You are spoiled. The way you talk about your parents and the way that you describe the things that upset you that they do, you are so spoiled."
Right, because she has helicopter parents. They're not
Mhm.
bad parents. They love her. And I actually ended up liking the way the parents said. They didn't go all the way on with it. They do care about her, but yeah, they choose her clothes. They choose her husband. They choose everything for her, and she just wants freedom. But they do it. They are loving about it.
I love that later they're like, okay, we got to do something because, yeah, she's able to stay here, but her parents won't leave until she does.
Yep.
And then she remembers, hey, I brought a mask for me. Don't ask why. You can wear it. And they go into the city, but then some guy tries to grab her because she has actually run away from home, not gotten permission to leave home, but she does this all the time, and so they just always hire people to go get her. So Gugu saves her. They run off. they meet back up. They have another nice talk. They meet up with Fushi. He brings the helmet back. And then her nanny shows up. They run off to get away from her, and they have, hey, Fushi, you go back and distract her. He becomes March and tries to distract the nanny so they can get back to the Booze Man's mansion.
Because the nanny, she sees this injured child on the ground.
With the arrow wound.
Well, I love that when he turns into March, he doesn't just like collapse on the ground next to her. He literally slams into her as March, bounces off, and then falls on the ground. Like this child just comes out of nowhere and slams into you like a cannonball. What are you gonna do?
And then nothing else interesting happens, and we get a 4-year time skip.
Yep, we'll come back to this later.
The enemy attacks again. Stabs him as March, so it takes his March form. Gugu realizes something bad's happening. He had been told the story about the enemy, so he realizes something bad. He runs back to help.
That's right. Fushi goes, if you come back, I'll bite you.
Yeah.
And so they fight for a little bit, and Gugu actually spits out the alcohol, and it hits a flame and lights on fire. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can shoot flame if I do it right." So he tries to sneak up, and Fushi is like, "No, you're not helping." And this is in wolf form, so he's like, "I will bite you if you come back." Gugu has to run back to the booze man to get a refill, but he gets drunk on the way because the booze has actually broken. The canister is broken inside his body and it's leaking. So he turns all red and he's sloshing. And he gets there. He's like, "Hey, booze man, give me your hardest stuff."
Well, it's what's great about this scene is the Reen is trying to justify like how great a people these people are and what a safe environment this is, and that it'll be great for her to work here. And then here busts in this boy, obviously plastered, asking for more booze.
And Booze Man does it, and while they're arguing with the parents more, and they talk about how she's betrothed, and he's like, "Well, good luck, because you're never gonna find anyone who loves Reen like I do." And then he runs back off into the forest. Fushi is gone, and the giant bear form, the enemy is in the giant bear form, and so he shoots his fire, and he burns it down, and it kills the core, and all that, well, let's call it data for now, flows into a little rock, and Fushi turned all the way back into his rock form, and then the beholder comes and wakes him up out of the rock form because he doesn't have consciousness to do it himself to realize he can turn back into another form, right?
Yeah, that's what I got too, which is really scary if you think about it from the perspective of like this immortal character. Like, you can reduce me to a rock and I'm back at stage 0. Ugh.
But I mean, this means he lost. Like,
yeah, big time.
Absolutely lost. Mm-hmm. And again, like I said at the outset, I thought that was a brilliant move by the writers.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, this was also an interesting moment because the old lady, Pirona, is standing there at the front of the door, and the two parents are going to take the girl out. And at first, it kind of confused me because she took her walking stick and she like stabbed the wall and blocked the doorway, and she had this look on her face that was really angry. But of course, it made sense later that she knew what he was facing out there, and it would be very dangerous for them if they had left.
But she couldn't say anything because they didn't want to give up that Fushi's a monster.
Yep.
So
exactly.
When Fushi turns back into his wolf form, he bites Gugu like he promised, but then they wrestle and then he thanks him. And then the beholder confronts him later and is like, "You need to leave. You're supposed to be exploring. You're supposed to be growing. And if you stay here, you're going to stagnate while the enemy is getting stronger." And he's like, and Fushi refuses. He's like, "I need Gugu to help me grow, and I'm not leaving Gugu."
Gugu is strong.
I love the way the English voice actor says Gugu. It sounds so childish. I stay with Gugu.
Gugu. It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then we get a 4-year time skip. And man, I love a good time skip, and this is a great one. So it's 4 years later. Gugu is now this tall young man. He's buff.
Buff
He's
goo.
17,
Yeah.
18 years old.
Buff goo.
He's buff. And the most interesting thing is Fushi has also aged 4 years because since that night, he has refused to use his powers at all. And because he's not resetting his form, his body actually aged. And as soon as the narrator tells us that, so you know, like, oh god, if he changes once, he's right back to whatever age. Because whatever you take the form, he has to start at that form. But he's like growing whiskers on his chin. He's like, I'm getting whiskers, and he can talk mostly normal now. He still sometimes has some trouble with words, but and and Reen comes by. Her 16th birthday is coming up. She doesn't live with them, but she comes and visits all the time, and still runs away on occasion. Just every once in a while runs away to their place. She invites them to their birthday, and she talks with Fushi about Gugu and what Gugu would like, and it's clear that her feelings for Gugu have grown. And she reveals that she's going to be married soon, so she really needs to get a boyfriend so that their parents will stop trying to get her married, so that she already has somebody. Meanwhile, Shin, the brother of Gugu, returns, and he's gotten his life together, and he approaches Gugu and he gives him the ring, and he tries to, and Gugu slaps it away, and he's like, hey, I realized what a horrible thing I did. I realized I wasn't the brother you needed me to be. I want to now be that brother. I want to start over. I've fixed my life thanks to you. And Gugu's like, nope, not interested. Just leave me alone. And so he brings the ring inside to everyone else. And Reen recognizes the ring because remember, she hadn't seen Gugu's face since she gave him that ring. And she realizes that, oh, that must have been Gugu who helped me with my lost puppy. So she runs out to get it to him. He's asleep. And she's trying to put the ring on him. She was trying so hard. I thought we were gonna get like a horror split the skin open scene. I was
No, it looked
so
so
freaking
bad.
out. He wakes up startled, and she's like, "Hey, if you're gonna make a move, you need to make it right now." and that freaks him out. So he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "You said you love me." He's like, "I don't remember that," because he was drunk. And she pelts him with potatoes and yells at him that he better bring a good present to her party. And then we learn not Gas Man.
Who's man?
Booze Man.
You're all
Gas
there.
Man is the new Booze Man of anime.
Yep.
Is this Mega Man or an anime? Come on.
Booze Man made him a new mask that has a fire starter inside of it so that he can shoot fire if the enemy ever comes back. So he puts that on. They go to the party. Booze Man has this big cry because I think he can
knows
sense. Yeah,
somehow.
he knows that time's about to march forward. He says that it's because I'm going to die soon and I won't get to see him grow up and become the man I want to see him become.
Yeah, he even says like, because I shouldn't have to die before he does. And I'm like, you won't. Don't worry.
So at the party, Fushi and Gugu are treated like outcasts and weirdos. He buys her a purple flower like the one she was picking that special day, and everyone's like, "That's so offensive. That's the flower she got brutally injured at."
Brutal.
And everyone's so offended for her, which she's happy. It's the first thing he's ever bought for her. People are trying to rip his mask off at the party. And she makes this comment like, well, if you never take off your mask, you'll never get to get kissed. And then she's introduced to her betrothed by her parents. And Gugu sees this and he gets sad. So he wants to leave. And Fushi's like, I'm still eating. I'm not leaving.
When he gives her the flower, she instantly realizes, oh, I know why you know about this flower.
She's suspicious. She's like, why did you choose this flower? He's like, well, because I know you like purple.
Totally random.
Yeah.
She
What are the
then
odds?
she then confronts Gugu outside, and this is where she asks him like, why did you really pick this flower? And he tells her the truth, and they do it in this really sweet way. Like, what was it? Because you saw a girl picking flowers one night? Yes. What was it? Was there a log rolling? Yes. And so she realizes not only who who really is, but everything he actually did. Not, I wasn't pushed by an enemy and hurt. I was saved by someone who sacrificed their entire face for me. And really beautiful, emotional scene. And then the floor literally falls out from underneath them, the balcony that's over the cliff. And Gugu falls and he pushes her back, saves her again. And Gugu falls and the episode ends. And then we get this. Guys, I checked the time. It's only 25 minutes, but my notes are crammed on the page for this episode. So much happens. But I'm not going to go over everything. So the knockers have been growing underneath the ground in this area for a long time, these past 4 years, to get ready for the next battle. And they're like these sticky tentacles. I know, right?
The knockers have been growing underground
The fun bags are attacking, guys.
with the sticky tendril. Okay, we are professionals. Move on.
Gugu actually manages to grab onto one of them. They're sticking out of the cliff face to survive. And then one pierces his skin
into his bicep.
Which, okay, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
In the OP, there's clearly zombies going around. And I was like, oh, I get it. I bet I know where the zombies come from. And I was like, oh, don't turn Gugu into a zombie.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yep.
The house that everyone's in starts collapsing, so Fushi turns into the bear to hold it up, and he tries to get everyone out. They do rescue.
Yeah.
They rescue Gugu. He runs inside, saves Reen's parents, runs back in to help Fushi, and they start battling the enemy. Now it's in stone form, but it's not really stone. It's the tentacles holding stone together in the form it wants. And they work together, and they almost get to the core, but they lose. And then it gets away, and then Fushi gets crushed. Reen comes in, saves Gugu.
And Fushi's in March's form too, so it's like doubly painful because like this rock hand just shoots out of the side of the cliff when they think, oh man, we're past the point of danger. This is great, and she just disappears into the hand and a pool of blood.
A red mist.
Yeah, just oh.
And he was March to help with the climbing to get on top. It was actually a tactical reason. It wasn't just I'm going to be my child form, so this is really sad.
Yeah.
Reen runs in. They try to escape, but the rest of the house collapses on top of them.
Camera.
Yeah, you went all fuzzy on us.
I've probably shaken it and it just lost focus. I'll be back in a second. For the people not on YouTube, I was fuzzy for a second, and Jason
was fuzzy.
handled it.
It was more than a second, or I wouldn't have said anything. Dang it.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in the episode, my lips aren't syncing up with the sound anyway, so it's probably not a big deal.
It probably helps.
Right?
You can't see that it's not syncing up.
So Fushi emerges, and he starts fighting the knocker. Gugu and Reen are pinned under the rubble, and he's holding all of it up off of her. And it's like his body's shaking. And she's like, "You don't have to." And he's like, "No, it's fine. It's not a big deal." And then like his mask opens up and blood starts coming out. And he tells her he loves her, and she reaches inside the mask and kisses him. And then we go back to Fushi, and he's been beating. He's like, I can feel it. And then suddenly he changes into Gugu, and he's freaking out. Like, Gugu can't be dead, but he's shooting fire and he's killing the monster. They end up falling off the cliff. And when they get off the cliff, well, he falls off and the knocker jumps after him. And when he jumps into the water, all the stone like burst away. And then the core flees into the ocean.
Which was weird because it was like the core didn't like water. That's the impression I got. But then it fled into the water.
It was like the form didn't, but the core was fine with it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really weird.
And then the beholder is like, you need to go after it, but Fushi's like, not right now.
It has March. You can't change into March.
Or the bear.
Oh, I thought it just had the bear. It did say there's something you have that it's something it took you don't realize yet. but
took the bear too.
I
You're
thought it
right.
was the bear.
Oh man, I was only thinking of March, but yeah, the bear.
Okay. A lot happens really quickly. They get Reen out of the rubble, and then right then Shin shows up to the party to see his dead brother, and it's very similar to the original accident. Like everyone's caring about Reen, and there's a couple people just standing around the dead body of Gugu and not caring. But Shin comes and picks him up, and we skipped over Gugu's backstory. They used to live with a family, and he thought it was his family, and then one day the family just left, and they're like, oh no, that's who we worked for. And his only family was the brother who would carry him on his back when everyone else was gone. And so his brother picks up his now giant muscular brother and carries him on his back. And then we get dead Gugu being like, where are we going? And they go to Reen and Pirona and Boozman and all his family. But he's like, but where's Fushi? And he turns around and there's Fushi telling everyone that he's dead. And he's like, oh, I guess I died. And then there's little
There's
March hiding behind him, watching.
Uh-huh.
What does all that mean? And then Reen wakes up, runs over to the Boozman's house to figure out what happened.
God.
They never told her Fushi's a supernatural immortal being.
Nope.
and he's now back into his 14-year-old boy form. He the whiskers are gone. He lost 4 years of life. So he's like, what do I do? What do I do? The only thing he can think of to do is he turns into Gugu. So she runs in. She thinks, oh, Gugu, you're okay. And he's like, yeah, I am. But Fushi died. And she's like, oh, that's really sad. But let's go pick flowers like we promised. And he's like, yeah, but here, you hold this ring and use it to remember me. Use it to remember me. And then Boozman's like, hey, here you go, Gugu. Here's that bag to go to town with, with multiple supplies for days. And Fushi leaves on his journey to get stronger so that people won't get hurt anymore. And then the last scene is Reen out in the field of flowers waiting for Gugu, and her dad comes up and she's like, I can't get married to the person you want me to. I'm in love with someone else. And he's like, well, then I want to meet him. He's like, you can't. He's left. Clearly indicating that she knows Gugu is dead, but not really sure how. I also want to say I really liked. I mentioned it about the parents, how they were overbearing, but not evilly so.
Mhm.
Like they're picking someone for her to get married to, so she'll be taken care of. But they're not like against the idea of her falling in love with someone else and being married.
Yeah.
They just want to make sure she's taken care of. It's not like, no, you have to do this because it's our family way. It's like, hey, it's wrong, but in good intention way, which you don't usually see with overbearing parents. It's almost always because I am overbearing parent and evil.
Yeah, it's more nuanced.
Another heart-wrenching scene that ends these 12 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your guys' thoughts on this final ending before we go to review?
Just another heartbreaking. It's like, stop introducing me to new characters, please. It hurts. It hurts.
That's what Tanya said when we first got introduced to Gugu as a little boy. She's like, oh, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. You're going to kill him. I don't want to know.
When we hit the time skip, I turned to my daughter and I said, this is going to be so much worse.
Yes.
Because we're not going to introduce you to another kid and kill him in a couple episodes. We're going to introduce you to another kid, have him grow up in front of your eyes, and make you care even more, and then do it.
Yep.
We're going to get that blade a lot deeper before we start twisting it.
Yep.
And it worked, and it was very effective.
It was very effective. We were both wondering over here whether Gugu and Reen were going to die under there, and if he was going to wind up with two new forms. But of course, it didn't go that way. But it seemed like that might have been what they were headed for. So
that's the way this show is getting you, because it's like, tragedy's coming, but we're not going to tell you where the tragedy
exactly
could be. Any of them. We left you some clues in the OP. Go. Good luck finding out which ones matter. The characters who seem really happy and like they're living their best lives, that's probably it.
They're probably the dead ones.
Oh yeah, and Gugu and Reen are the couple who are standing where he's got his arm around her, but his face is normal, and he's protecting her, and it's this beautiful shot that again you can just tell. I knew what these characters meant to each other and what he was doing in that single frame, and then after meeting and seeing his face get crushed in, I'm like, oh, that's never happened. He's never protecting her with his face normal ever. Oh no.
Oh no.
All right, let's go to our final reviews for these 12 episodes. Jeremy, it was your choice. You can go first.
I absolutely love this anime. This is right up there with ReZero for me. And it's honestly because the storytelling is so well done. The characters grow on you so well. They have good dialogue. They have a lot of subtlety and nuance in the way that they're drawn and the way that they act, their movements, their expressions. And so the stories that you're given with these characters, you really do get endeared. They're endeared to you. And when you lose them, it really does hurt. And I don't, like I said in the beginning, I don't cry with anime or shows in general. This never happens. Like maybe a little sniffle here or there, but I actually got affected by this pretty heavily. So I'm very impressed with the way that they did this. And yet there was still action, and there was still fantasy, and there was still room for enough unpredictability and craziness of environment, and there's enough mystery and questions that I'm genuinely intrigued, and I want to know where the story's going to go. I'm not just here because it's pulling on heartstrings, but boy does it do it well. So this is a 5 out of 5 for me. This is really, really top notch.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
I echo a lot of what Jeremy said as far as storytelling. But what this anime gets right really, really well is not just character arcs, but that slow burn character is learning a particular lesson or being endeared to the audience for more than just a superficial means. And, um, the really bland protagonist so that the audience has something to follow is not just overdone, but it's starting to get real boring and bland. This was a new take on giving the audience something to go through the story with Fushi, but also making you really care about him because you feel like you're watching him grow up. And so yeah, the 5 out of 5 for me. This is just a master class in detail and characters and story.
I'm going to come back to characters again. I know you guys have already said it, but I'm going to give some quick examples. Boozman is a wise. He takes in these orphans. He lets them live in his mansion. He's
Master
also
Rishi.
also experimenting on them, and that's the kind of layer that no one's a good person, no one's a bad person. We have so many layers to everyone. Purin is willing to sell Fushi for money, but also gives him a device that's the catalyst for Fushi and Gugu's relationship being fixed later. That and it's believable in both that she would do both. That is good character development, good character creation, and probably some of the best I've seen in a long time. 5 out of 5 for me, and I can't wait to see where the next 8 episodes go. Which is next.
Yeah. Would you say, you got me thinking about something there. Would you say that the dead characters were as gray as the rest?
March is all good. Gugu, he started experimenting on Fushi and like cutting
That's
him
true.
just because he could. And not that like I don't think he's gray, but he has flaws. He's not a perfectly good human being. March was a little girl, so I think that one is kind of fair. But also, kind of had her moments of selfishness of like, I'm not saving everybody. That's not my problem.
Yeah. And then the boy at the beginning, there wasn't really much other than the situation to see. But the only reason I bring it up is just because when you have an altruistic character or somebody who is more leaning towards good than bad, they're so much more poignant when they die. It's so much more effective.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
all of the other characters, I completely agree. 100%.
They are good. I just like that they bother to let their characters have flaws like that
Yeah.
that make them
Yeah,
more
For
endearing.
sure.
The fact that old lady was willing to eat his leg, but I love that old lady.
Yes.
She was so horrible at first, and then she grew on me.
She
Um,
stabbed him in the dungeons.
I have to say, I found very, very, very few tropes or anime pitfalls throughout this entire thing.
Yeah.
But it was very unique.
There
is
were
another thing.
typicals. And a lot of knockers.
A lot of knockers. I was just thinking about the
Yeah.
knockers too.
All right. Our next couple episodes are going to be the rest of this first season of To Your Eternity. So it's episode 13 through 20. So we'll be talking about that in our next podcast. If you have thoughts on To Your Eternity that won't spoil what's coming for us, please feel free to share. You can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can reach us on our email, the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave us a comment where we found the anime. All right. Also, I want to comment that we have an announcement coming up soon. Some good things in Baka's future, things we're very excited about. Hopefully, in our next episode, we will be announcing. So please tune in for that, and we'll see where the future is taking us. So, good things there. All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks so much for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.